Hello, I'm Todd Owen, and I'll be sharing my recently completed doctoral dissertation project named Establishing a Generalized Qualifying Autoclitic Repertoire in Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. For this study, we focused on qualifying autoclitics, which modify the intensity or direction of a listener's behavior by asserting, negating, or extending a primary verbal operant. Specifically, this study looked at conditions under which a speaker extends a known tact to a stimulus with weak control over a tact, and was an extension of the only study to date on teaching qualifying autoclitics by Howard and Rice, 1988. We included 4 male participants between the ages of 4 and 9 in the study, and I arranged the participants into dyads and randomly assigned the participants to the upper or lower tier of a concurrent multiple baseline across participants' design. In experiment 1, we assessed and taught qualifying autoclitics with distorted shapes and textual characters. I created 3 sets of familiar shapes and text, as well as 2 sets of unfamiliar shapes and text. Each set contained undistorted and distorted versions informed by 2 social validation surveys. I began by teaching the autoclitic phrase like a blank with 1 set of familiar stimuli, and then tested for generalization of autoclitics across all of the other sets. After we saw generalization with the familiar stimuli, I taught the tags for the unfamiliar stimuli and tested for generalization of autoclitics with those newly learned tags. Here are the data for the 4 participants, but in general, we saw rapid acquisition of autoclitics during autoclitic plus tact extension teaching phases, immediate generalization of autoclitics with the other familiar stimuli, rapid acquisition of the tags for the unfamiliar stimuli, and generalization of autoclitics to distorted versions of those newly learned tags. Now, possibly the most important function of qualifying autoclitics is to tact private events. For example, a young child may stand and say, "My feet feel weird," like they're pokey. By using qualifying autoclitics along with metaphorical extension, the child was able to extend a verbal operant within their repertoire to a novel stimuli and communicate otherwise inaccessible information to a listener. In experiment 2, we incorporated private events into teaching and assessing autoclitics. I created 8 PowerPoint slides of animals and items, each containing 8 pictures that were generally grouped by category. Again, the stimuli included were based on the results of a social validation survey. During these sessions, the participant had a laptop computer in front of them such that I could not see their screen. A second therapist sat next to the participant, and the participant's screen displayed one of the prepared slides. Sessions were constructed to be a game in which the participant's goal was to get me to guess what stimulus was being indicated on their screen. For each trial, the participant had 10 seconds to emit a tact or an autoclitic plus tact extension to describe the picture. I then held up a card that corresponded with the participant's response, and the second therapist confirmed whether or not my guess matched and provided reinforcement if applicable. Here are the data for the 4 participants, and in general, we saw no generalization of qualifying autoclitics after reaching mastery with shapes and textual characters. We saw limited generalization of autoclitics after teaching autoclitic plus tact extensions with 1 set, and multiple exemplar teaching resulted in gradual increases in autoclitics across those untaught sets. Thank you for your time and consideration.